All right. Well, we've got just tomorrow is when the WGA, that's the Writers Guild of America nominations, come out. I'll tell you what, I hadn't really planned on doing a video here about these guys, but it's like, I don't know, I looked at the list again, and it's like, holy cow, a lot of potential Oscar-winning screenplays are going to be left out this year from WGA just because of their fact their writers were not part of the Writers Guild, a couple animated films, and so on and so forth. So there's always some restrictions with WGA. So it's like, there's always going to be some that get nominated that are left off. Yeah, I mean, it's always, it's always tricky trying to predict these because WGA always, not always, but like almost with every year, it's like there's a front runner they don't go with, and it turns away. I can think, 2018 they had Eighth Grade win, and that wasn't even nominated at the Oscars. They went with Can You Ever Forgive Me over Black Klansman that year. Last year they got them both right though, with Jojo Rabbit and with Parasite. But go back 2017, Call Me by Your Name, and I believe Get Out both won here. So it's like every once in a while, they'll pick the winner. They picked. I remember they picked Moonlight, an original screenplay here because it was contending in original here, and it was adapted at the Oscars. So that shit happens sometimes too. So so let's just start with what films are out. These are the ones we know are not going to show up here tomorrow. I just kind of threw everything in here, so I can't remember, because some of these I'm not sure where they're at. But like probably I know the first couple are original. Mank and Minari are both out here. And I don't know about Mank's chances, but Minari, I can see as, if it starts to really gain momentum in a Best Picture, if it does happen to get that, if it comes back, because it did pretty well there at Critics' Choice, but if it comes back and has, it doesn't have the best film, it won't be up for Best Film at BAFTA, but if it gets a director nomination, does pretty well at BAFTA, does pretty well here across the guilds and stuff, all of a sudden, I think the momentum can kind of shift, and if that one does win Best Picture at Critics' Choice, does win SAG Ensemble or something, it can get on a train and win Best Picture. Screenplay can very easily go along for the ride. So that's a potential one. So if we're on this just from what I said there, okay, 2017 they were on, 2018 both were wrong, and then 2019 last year they were both right. Last award ceremony, because it's been close to 2 years now since some of these films came out in 2019. But anyways. So if we're due for another year where it's off again, it's like, well, Minari could win. And then I think over on the adapted side, I'm starting to really think The Father is maybe going to be the winner there. I can see it maybe not winning at the Globes, but like BAFTA, I think it'll win adapted screenplay. I can see it winning at Critics' Choice over Nomadland and over... let's see, who else is... Sorry, I'm going to scroll back up. One Night in Miami, Ma Rainey's are also in there as well. But they're not out, by the way, for WGA. Those two are included. But it's like, it's kind of a more or less 3 or 4 way race between who can win there. I think Ma Rainey's kind of at the bottom there. And then One Night in Miami definitely has a chance still. Nomadland, I think, has a chance. And then The Father. But I can see that scenario where it's... the films that aren't even eligible go on to win the Oscar, and it's happened before, because I think Tarantino's never been part of the Writers Guild, and 2 of his screenplays have won. So it can definitely happen. Anyway, so Nomadland, The Father are out. The Life Ahead was one I saw that's not on the list here. Ammonite's not on here. The Assistant is not on here. Supernova, Pieces of a Woman. As we mentioned, animated films don't contend here, so Soul is out, Onward is out, and then Personal History of David Copperfield and Blythe Spirit were a couple other ones that didn't have the WGA requirements. So it's like, okay, so what the hell's in? And, I kind of looked at it here, and I'm like, well, on the adapted side, there's 3 from the Oscar list that I have getting nominated that I have on here. So I have those 3, and that's One Night in Miami, Ma Rainey's, and News of the World. I think those 3 should not have too big of a problem getting in. The only one on there that's kind of maybe shaky is News of the World. But it's like, I don't know, so far, it did a little bit better than I expected at the Globes, getting the Supporting Actress nomination. It missed the stunt ensemble at SAG, but it did get Supporting Actress there again for Helena's Angle, so it's got support there. And Critics' Choice actually gave it quite a few nominations. They put it in for Best Picture, unlike The Father, so which I would argue The Father is probably ahead of it in the Best Picture race. So it's like, yeah, it's still got some support here. I can see it doing pretty well at the Guilds. It might do very well at BAFTA. It was on quite a few of the long list there for the categories. It's on the short list and stuff for like score, which that would have been a key one to. If that was missing from that, we knew it was definitely in trouble, because that's almost almost undeniably one of the most praised parts of the film, other than like some of the acting and direction and stuff. But it's like from like top category stuff, it's like almost everybody acknowledges it's a great score. So I think it's kind of on shaky ground here, but I think with The Father and Nomadland out, I think that really will help it clear the hurdle there. And then the other two I have getting in are The Martanian and First Cow. First Cow just because it seems like a Writers Guild thing to do. It's like, I feel like they're going to go with something unexpected there for that fifth slot. And anyway, so I was like, yeah, I can see something like that happening. I wouldn't throw out, like, United States versus Billie Holiday could definitely get a good, big boost here if it gets a WGA nomination. The Borat sequel would definitely be, I think, more in contention if it does land a nomination here. Because so far, like, it's missed the Globe and Critics' Choice and stuff, but not to say it was highly expected to get those, but it's like, well, you could have seen it happening. Borat, if it had gotten song and screenplay and stuff at the Globes, it definitely would have improved its chances there. And then Emma is one I'm looking at possibly too. That's on the long list at BAFTA. I can see, definitely some guilds are going to go for it in like costume and production design. I would imagine both going for it. But the period piece part of those, but it's on the long list. I haven't really heard too many people talking about it for screenplay. It didn't get on Critics' Choice list or anything, so it's possible. But yeah, and then the last one I would say maybe, just maybe, if they do go for it, Hillbilly Elegy, because so far, like, the only other guild that's came in is Screen Actors Guild, and of course they gave it 2 nominations. So one that was, I didn't quite have it in, but I thought she had a chance, Amy Adams. But yeah, and I haven't done my homework here. I don't know. I don't think I've heard from any other guilds that have announced anything yet that I know of. I think a lot of those are coming in the next few weeks here. Anyway, so that's what I think for Adapted. So again, the 5 I have are One Night in Miami, Ma Rainey's, News of the World, Martanian, and First Cow. On the original side, we do have our more or less frontrunner here, Trial of the Chicago 7, Promising Young Woman, Sound of Metal, or those two. Let me just start with those two, because Sound of Metal I don't have getting in at the Oscars, but I do have The Five Bloods. So that's 3 of my 5 are on here. So, yeah, for Promising Young Woman, I think that one should be good to go. Trial of Chicago 7, yeah, Aaron Sorkin never has a problem with a lot of these. Like, he got in Directors Guild first time for Molly's Game, the last time he directed a film, so that should not be a problem. He's almost always a nominee here at Writers Guild. And yeah, Promising Young Woman, yeah, it seems like that one is becoming more and more solid as a, maybe not as a winner, but definitely as an expected nominee. The Five Bloods I put on there because Spike Lee, they gave him the nomination for Black Klansman. He didn't win, so I can see him getting nominated and losing again. So that leaves 2 slots here. So again, Sound of Metal is one. It got a Critics' Choice nomination. I believe it's on the long list at BAFTA as well. So it seems like that one's pretty solid. And again, it's that 5th slot, and it's like, okay, there's a few possibilities here. On the Rocks is one I looked at. Malcolm and Marie is one I looked at. Another Round is one I looked at. Judas and the Black Messiah. But I settled on Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always. That did get a couple nominations at Critics' Choice, like Actress, and it also got in for Original Screenplay there as well. So it's definitely, it's on a couple of people's radars. It was out early enough, and sometimes the guilds do go for the early stuff. SAG being probably the principal one. But yeah, I that one kind of made sense to me. I was like, yeah, I can see that one. Now, Judas and the Black Messiah, I think we're still waiting to see if it actually is number 1 or not at the box office this weekend, because I've seen a lot of conflicting reports there. But it clearly did not do as well as I thought it would. Just at barely over 2 million is the highest I've seen it. But I don't know. But it's like we've seen other, just to kind of go off on a trail here a little bit. We did see like a couple of films like The Croods went up in its box office this weekend from last weekend. The Little Things fell slightly. Part of this might be because it's Valentine's and President's Day weekend, kind of. But I don't know. It's like, I don't know. It's like we're starting to see cases drop off in the U.S. here for COVID, and I'm like, okay, is this maybe? I mean, I don't want to be premature in it, but it's like, is it maybe the start of getting people back into the theaters again? I mean, obviously, a lot of theaters are still either closed entirely or at very minimal capacity. Most of the big theaters around me are at 40% capacity. They listed on their thing. If you want to buy a ticket online, it does say 40% capacity and stuff like that. So, it's clearly we're not going to get like $100 million opening. I don't think in the next, definitely not in this calendar year. I would say definitely looking at maybe middle of next year. Maybe by the time we get to like what's supposed to come out next year? Like maybe the next Doctor Strange. If they delay Spider-Man, maybe that would come out in May of 2022, and that I can see breaking 100 million. It's like we have to get over some of those hurdles here. And getting people back into the theaters, I think there's an audience and an appetite for people to go back to the theaters, but it's like we just need to have the studios be comfortable, putting the flag on there and saying we think it's good to go and all that. But that's still a big question mark. Anyway, so getting back to this, though, for the original screenplay list, the other ones, again, the four I was saying otherwise are like, Judas and the Black Messiah, On the Rocks, Malcolm and Marie, Another Round are probably the four I would say have a shot at upsetting. Anything else, I think would be a little bit of a surprise there. But, WGA, sometimes they go, like Logan, I remember that got in for adapted in 2017, and that actually, the list that got in there for adapted in 2017 at WGA, those were the Oscar 5. So Logan got on there. We were all like, okay, that's kind of weird. But that year PGA went with like Wonder Woman as one of their 11 Best Picture nominees. So it's like, okay, maybe they just go on a weird tangent there or something. But that one was in. Anyway, so that's what I have for WGA. I don't know if I need to necessarily come back tomorrow to say who the nominees are. We'll probably get to it in another video there. But yeah, I wanted to take some time here, and I'll try to put in time cones here after I'm done here. But I want to take some time to talk about, okay, what are the movies I've seen? Because there's so many that have over the weekend here. There was like nothing going on where I'm at. It's like -8 degrees, and the wind chill's like 30 below, so like nobody's going outside or anything. So I was stuck inside all weekend, and I was like, I got through 6 films. 6 films over the weekend. That's how busy I was. Well, actually, no. A couple of these. Malcolm and Marie. I started that one in the middle of last week, and then since then got it done. But yeah, let me see here. And then there is one where I did see Freaky, the horror movie. I talked about it when it came out. I wanted to see it. I never got a chance to. But just quickly, just talking about that one. Fun movie. I didn't think it was overall like a great masterpiece by any means, but like Vince Vaughn actually gives a great comedic performance. He does, he has some kind of quieter moments as well that are nice. The young actress in that is really good. Both of them are really good at nailing. Okay, I'm this character, now I'm this character in this other person's body and stuff. They really nail that. I'll think maybe her name will come to me later, but yeah, I looked her up. She's in like 3 Billboards. She's been in a bunch of stuff. She's on that HBO show with Nicole Kidman and Meryl Streep, The Big Little Lies. So she's been in a ton of stuff. So I recognized her face, but I didn't know her name. But yeah, I liked her in this. I liked Vince Vaughn in this. I think what's really good about it is you can kind of tell from the first 5 minutes what kind of movie it's going to be, because the first kill by the Vince Vaughn character, who's this kind of serial killer type, you could just tell right away that it's an over-the-top, too much fun type movie. I won't give away exactly what the kill is, but it was so over-the-top that I just laughed and laughed and laughed at it. There's a lot of big laughs in the movie, though. So I haven't seen The Happy Death Day from the same director, but this one I liked. I would probably say the only thing is there's a couple moments toward the last, when you get into the last act, that were kind of, some of the kid actors really were cringy. Like there's one in particular, he's supposed to be like the hunk type character or whatever. It's like, some cringy moments. I mean, he's fine in other scenes, but it's like, especially there were a couple scenes where he's like with Vince Vaughn there, and it's like, because Vince Vaughn is the girl in his body at that point, so he's like, like they're, they don't like fully make out or anything, but it's like there's, they're being cute with each other, and it's like, I don't know, just his acting was the problem, not the problem of those two together by any means, but it's just like, I don't know, just the acting was kind of cringy in that scene, in particular. Um, Otherwise, like, I enjoyed seeing Alan Ruck in there. The Cameron from Ferris Bueller has a fun role as like the shop teacher who's always on the girl's case, and then all of a sudden when the girl is Vince Vaughn, it's like, oh, you know it's coming, and yeah, it's a pretty wonderful scene there. So I enjoyed it. I would probably say it's on that range. It's 8 out of 10, but like closer to a 7 for me. It's like, again, there were some moments that didn't work, but overall, yeah, it was an enjoyable, fun. I would say it's fun Friday night entertainment by all means. So I haven't taken my allergy pill today, so hopefully my nose doesn't run through the whole rest of this thing, because I've got some things to say about some other films that I saw here. Let's start with Malcolm and Marie. Let's see how much trouble I get in here, because I kind of talked about it a little bit there, and when I saw the first 40 minutes, it was actually closer to the first 35, so I kind of lied there. But I'll tell you what, still through the movie, I think John David Washington and Zendaya, I would probably put them in my list of 5 for Best Actor and Best Actress from what I've seen so far. Again, still have to catch up with Nomadland and Frances McDormand. On the actor's side, I haven't seen Minari yet, so I don't know about Steven Yeun. Haven't seen One Night in Miami. That's got a couple acting bids potentially in there. Judas and the Black Messiah, I haven't seen that one. That's a supporting actor mostly, I think, for Daniel Kaluuya. But John David, I would put him on the list with like Gary Oldman. I would put him on the list with Chadwick as a nominee. And not to spoil it, but Sound of Metal, I would put Riz Ahmed on there as well, for sure. But yeah, John David is fantastic in this. And Zendaya are great in this. They're both, obviously it's, I kind of alluded to it too. It's obviously going for like a Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, the way it's the two characters kind of trapped in one setting the whole movie, and they're just arguing back and forth the whole movie and all that, a lot of shouting and yelling scenes and all that. And it's overall, I think it gets to a certain point in the third act where it's not like a brick wall moment, but it's certainly a moment where it's like it really kind of starts to peter out, and there's a couple scenes where I was kind of losing interest there by the end. There's one good scene that is kind of like the conclusion of their fighting. It's like the final argument scene where finally he says something that she's wanted him to say for a long time and all that. And I felt like that was the perfect moment to end the movie, but then there's still another like 4 minutes after that, and it goes to the full ending of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, where it's like they have to face the sunrise of another day, knowing that they're still trapped in this marriage and stuff. In this case, just this relationship. And it, I get it. It leaves it kind of on a note where it's like, okay, you don't know if they're going to still be a couple at the end, or if they are eventually going to, something else is going to snap and they're both going to break up, So, I mean, other than that, I thought, solid acting, solid job on the cinematography. The writing I thought was great. Direction, again, for this, confined space and everything, good direction for sure from Sam Levinson, the son of Barry. And, I overall didn't really have that many quips with it, again, except for the third act does lose some steam. And I thought, again, I would have maybe preferred that final scene be the last, kind of the end of the argument scene, and they didn't have to go to the full, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf ending. They didn't necessarily need to do that, because, I mean, if you watch, 90 or 100 minutes of this couple arguing, that even at this ending here, there's going to be possibly some shaky ground going forward. That's kind of the whole gist of it there. But, I mean, I'll talk about it a little bit here. I'll try not to go too over the top or anything here, but it's like, I really do have a problem, though, with a lot of the critics who are not a fan of this movie for a very specific reason. And I'll tell you, I'll be honest here. I do watch, they used to be called What the Flick on Young Turks Network. Now they're just their own thing. And it's Breakfast All Day is what they call it. It's Christy Lemire, Matt Atchity, and Alonzo Duralde, and sometimes Ben Mankiewicz. And, I mean, in all honesty, I watch it because it's like, I don't, always agree with these guys. I mean, sometimes I think they're way out of, way out of left field. I'm like, okay, how could you not like this movie? Like, Alonzo, he didn't like Promising Young Woman, which I liked, and everybody else there, like Matt and Chrissy, I would say they might have put it on their best of the year list. They really loved it. And I'm like, this is the best we get when it comes to like the current day equivalent of like a Siskel and Ebert, at the movies or whatever. And Christie was even on the last iteration of At the Movies. So I mean, it's great to see that. But I'm not watching them anymore because of what they did here. This is absolute bullshit. What they did, they basically criticized the movie because it was from a white filmmaker and it's talking about black subject matter. I don't want to, we kind of talked about that a little bit in the last video there, where I appreciate that perspective. And I don't care who the writer-director is. I don't care what skin color they are, how they identify their gender, whatever. They can make the movie they want to make. You don't have to go by identity politics or identity this, identity factors, going into who should be able to talk about what subjects and what's taboo for a certain person. It's like, fuck you for that perspective. Fuck you up the ass. You are ridiculous with that shit. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Anybody can talk about it. It's like, what, are you going to go back and retroactively now hate Amistad because that was directed by Steven Spielberg and it was a black perspective film? At the time, you know how people reacted to that film? Spielberg got nominated, for Christ's sake. So the Globes, at least. He didn't get the Oscar nomination, but Amistad, with Anthony Hopkins got in, and it got in for a couple other things, I think, like score or whatever, but it was a well-respected film at the time. It's like, Jesus Christ, what is your problem? I mean, one of them had Christie had a big problem with, there's the movie they kind of reference, there's that bitch at the LA Times, white bitch at the LA Times, they kind of make that reference through the movie, and John David goes off 4 minutes straight on a tirade about this critic. And basically, part of the reason Christie didn't like the film is because she knows that particular person at the LA Times, and it's like, okay, I get it, but it's like, your job as a film critic is to review the film, not review the politics around the film, not review the filmmaker and their skin color. It's ridiculous. And I appreciated the message, and I fully stand with the message of, by all means, if you have a director out there who is black, they don't have to be just known as a black filmmaker. They don't have to be put on the same level as other black filmmakers. They can be put on level of any director. Just because you're a black filmmaker doesn't mean you're the next Jordan Peele, you're the next Spike Lee, you're the next Barry Jenkins. They name a lot of them in the film there. It's like, you can be the next Spielberg. You can be the next William Wyler, like they compare in the film. Again, John David Washington character. It's like, I don't know. I think that's that's how I would like to be done if that were me. It's like, so I absolutely appreciated that that perspective the film had. And I really do not care for particularly critics and anybody else out there who does want to say, okay, we only want black people to say this in a film if it's directed by and written by a black person. It's like, oh, God, Jesus Christ, what are you, in favor of segregation now? Jesus. I mean, not to go over the top with it, but it's like, it kind of feels that way. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's like, whatever. It's like, So, in other words, what you're saying by that means is Spike Lee has absolutely no point in directing white people in BlacKkKlansman or directing white people in Da 5 Bloods. That's what you're saying. That's the equivalent of what you're saying with this whole Sam Levinson thing in this. It's like, really? That's what you want to say? Of course you would never say that because Spike Lee, anyway, so you get the point. But I'm not really in. So the mixed reception that film has, I've read a couple other reviews, and I'm not just pointing those guys out. There's more, I'm sure, that did that. But it's like, I'm, again, really not appreciative of film critics that put that kind of stuff first over the quality of the film. Because again, you are a film critic. You are there to watch the movie, not to be a politically correct hack. Again, go back to Siskel and Ebert. There's a great video you can watch there they did in the early 90s where they talked about it. They both cited this. They said, political correctness is the death of film criticism. If you go out of your way, and if it's a black director and you give the film a negative review, that doesn't make you a racist. If it's a white filmmaker and you liked it, you're not a white supremacist. It's like, Jesus, are we seriously this dumb now? We have to go to this point. Anyway, so, yeah. My point is, if you want to make a film, make a film. It doesn't matter what the subject matter is. You shouldn't be, excluded from having to direct a film in that way. So, yeah, that's my bottom line with it. So, Malcolm and Marie, I give it the thumbs up. I think that one's I would probably lean closer to a 9 out of 10 on that one. I think, again, the writing is strong. A lot of the monologues are really great. The acting is superb. So, again, just the third act is not as strong as the first two acts, but still, other than that, I really didn't see too many qualms with it. So that's one I definitely recommend, for sure. And yeah, don't, not say fuck the critics, because, there are still definitely a lot of critics who are in favor of this film and do give it high praise. But yeah, just be, look out for some of them, I'm not saying blacklist the ones who didn't give it a favorable review because of their political agendas or whatever. I'm not saying that, but, just be you. And if you do listen to some critics and not others, By all means, yeah, whatever. I'm sure I'm probably canceled now by all these people, but I don't give a fuck. All right, we'll move on here. I've got like 5 more, so we'll, again, try not to spend way too much time on everything here. Ammonite was another one. So I've been kind of waiting to see this one, and because it's Saoirse Ronan, who's had 4 nominations in the past 15 years or whatever. Kate Winslet, who is always a good actress. And Ammonite, it's about a slow process of taking, you can see where I'm going with this. It's a slow process of removing, fossilized stuff out of the sea or in the sand and polishing it and dating it and figuring out what it is and all that. And it's a slow, at times meandering, and at the end of the day, boring film. I couldn't really recommend this one. Good costumes for the most part, good acting from Kate Winslet. Saoirse, not her best work here, frankly. She's fine in it, but I wouldn't really, cite this as like up there with Brooklyn or, for me, Mary Queen of Scots. I really thought she was great, or even Lady Bird for that matter. So it's like, I wouldn't really list this as one of her best acting jobs. Unfortunately, there's really not much to her character either. Just on the screenplay level, it's like all she kind of does is just go around monotone and then have a couple of crying scenes over like nothing. And then it's like, again, it's a right at 2 hours or so, and it's like, again, really, really pacing is a huge issue here, where it's like, oh my god, like especially the first half hour just takes forever to get going. And all that. I think if this had been cut down to like a more tight, 90 minutes or 95 minutes even, we really could have had an engrossing story here. Because I think the 2 characters in it, Kate Winslet and Saoirse, in a better script, a more concise script, I think you could have really gotten more of an edge to these characters and definitely seen the progression of their, at first... not animosity quite, but like, kind of butting heads. Winslet really doesn't want anything to do with her. And then slowly, they kind of get tighter and tighter as the movie goes to the point where they do have like a sex scene and stuff. Just that, progression over time, sure, it's a little bit more effective in that way. I get that, but, most of the time I would complain about it otherwise. But I don't know, I felt like even in a 90, 95-minute movie, having these elements and working them out that way, it could have worked. We get, the animosity more or less between, like, I don't know, just to cite an example here, Steve Martin and John Candy in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, they tell that in 90 minutes, so it can happen, it can be done. But, this one, there really was not much there. Not much. So that one I'm more like a 4 out of 10. It's just way too slow. Just, again, pacing is just so slow, just painfully slow. Acting, again, Kate Winslet, I think, is probably the better of the 2, but I don't know. I really wouldn't even list this as one of her, like, again, maybe not even her top 10 performances, frankly. So, it's not one I fully recommend at all. Okay, moving on to Sound of Metal. Here's one. Okay, here's one. I have to correct myself from previous videos, because this is not just another drumming whiplash movie. No, this is a movie about the deaf community, about the hearing impaired and everything, whatever the political correct thing is. I don't know. They say, I think they say the word deaf way more than they say like hearing impaired or whatever in the movie. So, anyways, but yeah, I think this one. Just frankly speaking, it's a really good movie. I think it is absolutely up there with Pieces of a Woman, Malcolm and Marie, Trial of Chicago 7. I think it's one of those films I really enjoy. News of the World I would probably put on that list too. This one, just starting with Riz Ahmed. He knocks this out of the park. Absolutely, he does. Because he really nails a lot of the authenticity of the performance, coming in with how this would happen in real life, because he's a guy starts out in the beginning of the movie with the drumming and everything, and all of a sudden he's in the world of deaf. It's craziness how that happened, and very realistic, I would say, because there's a couple scenes where he gets frustrated, he starts breaking shit, and he has those they always talk about in some of the Oscar punditry, the kind of this plate smashing scenes, the yelling scenes, the shouting scenes. Obviously, Malcolm and Marie is a big example of that. But like here, Riz Ahmed gets a couple of those scenes, and he's up to the challenge. And I liked him in Nightcrawler. I thought he gave a good performance and everything. And I haven't seen whatever the Night Manager, I think, was the one. it was Night Manager or Night of, whichever one of those miniseries, whatever. I haven't seen that one, but he got tons and tons of praise for that one, and all that. But yeah, this one I think is the best thing I've seen him in, his best performance there. And Paul Raci, wow, I'd never heard of this guy, and man, I hope this guy does get a boost after this, because he's fantastic in this. And I mean, right away from the first scene, I was like, okay, this is a smart character, an experienced character. This guy feels like, he's been through everything. Just the way he articulated his speech that he gives to Ruben, the Riz Ahmed character, the way he goes through it, like the orientation scene and stuff when he takes him to the more or less halfway house where it takes place, where most of the movie takes place. That stuff was really, really good. And yeah, I mean, not to spoil it or anything, I'm not going to give too much away, but his final scene, Paul Raci's final scene, I mean, he's more than just the. I've heard. I believe this is correct because I watched a little bit of an interview with him last night. I was like, just to make sure he's not actually deaf in real life. I don't believe he is, but I've heard that he grew up with two deaf parents, so he knows the sign language and everything. That's very authentic. He grew up with that and stuff. Kind of funny because you go back, like some Hollywood legends like Lon Chaney Sr. Grew up with sign language because both his parents were deaf, and of course he was one of the more towering figures of actors there in the silent era. Pretty fitting. And he died of throat cancer of all things. So it's like, how much more ironic can you be in that way? But anyways, and he actually died in 1931, right when sound horror movies were starting to come in with Dracula and Frankenstein and stuff. So it's like, holy cow. But anyways, back to this one though. But yeah, Paul Raci's final scene, again, I don't want to give too much away here, but it's like, you can see there's a particular moment where he has to, you can just read it in his eyes, just as an actor, forget all the sign language and playing a deaf person and stuff, just in the eyes and in the voice, he nails it. I mean, because you can tell in this particular scene, he's been here before, he's had to give this speech before, he really hates giving this speech, but he has to give it to Ruben, a guy he likes, and a guy who has done a lot for the community that he's become a part of. And yeah, those scenes, again, I'm not going to give too much away here, but, Riz Ahmed, he has a few scenes with, a classroom full of hearing-impaired children and stuff, and it's, several scenes where he is with them, and I think one of Riz's best scenes is summarized in a scene where he and the classmates they all have their hands down, they're listening to the vibrations, or not, I shouldn't say listening to, I'm sorry, feeling the vibrations on the piano. I didn't mean for that to be funny. That was my slip, whatever. But they're feeling the vibrations on the piano, and here's Riz Ahmed. You can just see as the camera kind of closes in on him and stuff. It's like he feels the pain, because this is a guy. They don't get. I don't think they go into too much detail with the kids or anything. If any of them are like him, where it's partially hearing. It's 70% of his hearing is gone in this year, another 75 in this year, or whatever it was. They explain it in the beginning, but he doesn't know. As far as we know, all these kids have been deaf all their lives, so they don't know what they're missing. But Riz Ahmed, who grew up, up until a couple weeks, months, whatever, up to that point, he was in, he was a regular guy. He could hear everything, and now it's like he knows what he's missing, and these kids don't know what they're missing. And it's like, that was so powerful. And there's so many scenes that are so well done with, again, with him with the kids and being in the group and everything, and the other, adults who are hearing impaired as well. It's like, again, so well done. And again, I speaking of Siskel and Ebert, I always remember there was a documentary. I haven't seen it. I haven't been able to track it down anywhere. But it was, I might be wrong about this. It might have been produced in the 80s and then released here in the States in the 90s from France. It was a documentary called In the Land of the Deaf. And the only reason I know about it because Siskel and Ebert talked about it, and it was on the same show as The Mask, and it happened to be the review after The Mask. So I was like, I don't know, I was watching the whole episode or something, and I'm like, okay, what's this? And it's like, that documentary really went into... so if anybody out there has seen that documentary, let me know where I can find it somewhere, because I haven't been able to track it down anywhere. But it looked fascinating, because it's all about, it's all set in France, but it's like, it's again... just the perspective of the deaf community, and it's like they go into teaching and all the other activities that we would think would be they would be excluded from, like singing and giving lessons in classrooms and stuff. And it's like, this is how they do it, and they do it beautifully and they do it wonderfully, and it does look like a very, very documentary you can be drawn into and stuff. Speaking of political correctness, I remember Siskel in his review when he was talking on camera about it, he said, I don't know how this will come off in the politically correct world. Of course, politically correct back then, 25 years ago, is a little different than politically correct today. Where he was talking about, I don't know how this is going to come off, but he says, it almost makes me say, so what if they're missing out on the world of sound? They're very tight knit in this community here, and all that. And I feel like, yes, that's, I got the sense from the clips there from the doc, and I feel it again here with Sound of Metal. So again, this made me really think of that, because there's a tightness with this group, with the kids in the classroom, and with this kind of the adult group that he spends most of the time with and stuff. There's a tightness there and a knit, more than just ride or die, best friends that, grow up together. Like, these people share the same experience. They all have the exact same experience of, everything that's going on. They have grown up different lives to come to this point and to be together. But they have that exclusiveness, with the hearing impairment and stuff that you can't duplicate. You can't duplicate with just a couple, group of friends or whatever, just in the regular world, So it's like that, I really thought that they really, really nailed that. So I really, as the movie went on, I really grew to really like it more and more. And the more I've gone away from it, the more I'm like, I have to watch this again because it was good. It was that good. So that one I would give a 9 out of 10 to. Again, really the only quips I have with that one, again, I feel like there were a couple points after the Paul Raci character has left, where Riz Ahmed kind of goes back into the world of hearing, and a couple things happen there. I won't give too much away there if you haven't caught it yet, but it's like some of that stuff was hit or miss, but getting the Olivia Cook character, I appreciated her. The only other problem I had, the first 2 minutes really threw me off because I thought I was going to hate it, because the first 2 minutes is literally just, I believe, the Olivia Cook character just yelling into a microphone as part of a punk rock group or whatever. And here's Riz Ahmed on the drums, and he's got like a tattoo that says like "Kill me now" or something on his, "Please kill me" or something is tattooed on his chest and all that. I'm like, don't tell me this is like all a punk rock musical or something that I thought I've been lied to. This doesn't have anything to do with deaf community. This is or with just rocking out like Whiplash or whatever. No, this is like punk rock or whatever, which I'm not a huge fan of that music, frankly. So I was like, oh no. So after the first 2 minutes, I was like, I'm ready to shut it off if it's just going to be this for 2 hours. But no, it wasn't. It's it definitely, and obviously, you look back and it's like, oh, they're clearly, showing, okay, this is the world Riz Ahmed is in. No wonder he loses, most of his hearing or whatever, because he's around this environment for 12, 13 hours a day, whatever it is. So, yeah. So I get why they went back and did that, but it's like, yeah, just to start the movie with that was a little jarring for me. But again, in retrospect, yeah, it makes sense why they did it. Okay, so that one, again, Pieces of a Woman, Malcolm and Marie, News of the World, Trial of Chicago 7, boom, they're all up there as some of the best I've seen this year. Okay, then we get to The Prom. I don't know what to do with this movie. I don't know. I mean, this is such a weird movie. And I mean weird, like, just in the perspective of, I don't know how to rate this movie. I don't know if I even liked it or not. Because there's so many things that were actually good about it, and then other things that were terrible. I don't know. I mean, it's all over the roadmap. I mean, I don't know where to begin with this. I guess I enjoyed some of the performances. I mean, Nicole Kidman is having fun. All the supporting characters are having fun. The Meryl Streep character and her performance and stuff, she's having a ball with it. It's clearly not an Oscar-caliber performance by any means. Even James Corden, who I know he got a lot of flack from some critics, there's a couple scenes where he's just, being the kind of, it has to be the big emotional moment, or it's like, if it was in a regular drama, those scenes I think would actually work. It's just juxtaposed to some of his almost flamboyant portrayal of the gay Broadway star, almost, getting those scenes back to backs. It can be a little jarring, so I can see why maybe some people didn't care for that. But yeah, just in those quiet scenes, there's a couple scenes where he has to, kind of talk about his past and how he was kind of rejected by his parents, the same way the main character in this is, for being gay and stuff. And it's like, those scenes, I think, frankly, they worked. Maybe it's just me, but it's like, not say I ate it up with a spoon. I think that James Corden should be in for like Best Actor or anything. No, but no, I thought he serviced it well, and he did good with that piece of work with those scenes and stuff. Yeah, but it's like, yeah. So there's moments like that work. The overall message of the movie is be inclusive to everybody. which I again, going back to Malcolm and Marie, that should be a given at this point. And that's, I don't care if you're talking about like, gay rights or whatever, human rights issue, whatever. I'm down for that. Obviously, I think the movie, it doesn't totally make it clear though in the beginning. Okay, how over the top are we going here with this portrayal of like Midwestern life? Because again, I'm a guy from the Midwest, so I could share a story here, but I won't. Has to do actually just the gist of it is one of the people I took to prom when I was in high school later came out as gay. So I remember the night of that prom, I don't know, I thought I did a bad job or something, but it's like, well, she probably just wasn't comfortable or whatever. But anyway, so it's like, I don't know, it's like some part of me kind of thought about that while I was watching it. So I'm like, I don't know. I mean, my school just did a regular prom. I can't remember if we had any same-sex couples at either one of my proms, but it was like, I don't know if my particular school or whatever would have a problem with it, but obviously in the story, this school has a huge problem with it, and all that. And like right away from the top, there's like this musical number about Hicks and Indiana and stuff, and how they're all cousin marriers, and they're all, this and that, and it's like, okay, clearly they're going over the top here and stuff. And all that. And it's like, yeah, you get to it, and it's like, yeah, for the most part, it's over the top, but then there's other moments where it's not supposed to be over the top, where it's supposed to be kind of realistic in the portrayal of Midwestern life, where it's just mostly, Republicans around or whatever. And it's like, I don't know. It's like, again, the movie doesn't really make it too clear where it's at. It's like, okay, are you making fun of them, or are you, going over the top to make fun of them, or are you making fun of the caricatures, or are you really putting them down like this is intolerable behavior or whatever? It's like the movie does not have a clear stance on that, I don't think. And again, neither does it really have a clear stance on a couple other issues that it raises up, like around celebrities and stuff. It's like, I don't know. It's like, because the whole point of the movie for the Broadway stars is to gain more celebrity, but at the same time, it's like everything they do after they say, I'm not doing this just for celebrity, it's like, well, that's kind of seen as doing it for celebrity. It's like, it's just all over the roadmap. And some of the younger actors, I mean, the singing, especially, again, it sounded like from some of the younger actors, just sounded so auto-tuned and painful. Some of the acting, I mean, some of there's like a clique group or whatever. It's like 2 boys and 2 girls that are straight or whatever. It's like they walk around the movie and all of them are awful. They're just terrible actors. And like when it's just them talking or whatever, it's like, oh God. It's like, oh Jesus. Just terrible, just awful line delivery and stuff. And even one of the the main girl's, her date, or her girlfriend or whatever, even some of her acting was just overboard. Like some of her sad scenes are just so overboard where it was again painful to watch. Yeah, it's like, okay, there's so it's like, again, I'm all over the roadmap here. But that being said, the singing from Corden and from Meryl Streep and from Nicole Kidman, them good and sounds solid. It doesn't sound auto-tuned, or doesn't come off that way at least. The dancing and choreography is good. There's one particular song where they're in the mall, and it's that cliquey group, but it's like this one guy is talking about the hypocrisies of this group. It's like, yeah, they hate gay people, but they say that's because we're Christian, and the Christian thing says you're not supposed to do anything with gay people, whatever. But it's like, oh, but you have a tattoo. Oh, but you've lost your virginity. Oh, but this, and they name off everything. It's like, it's a pleasant way to do that in that song. It's a good, a kind of a good story point there. And the song is dynamite. And it's like probably the catchiest tune in the whole thing, because it goes after the kind of gospel kind of beats to it and everything. They even have the people in the background like clapping in time and everything to it, which again you would see with any other gospel type tune like that. And it's like, that's like a fun moment, and there's other fun songs and stuff, but then there's other songs that drag on for way too long. Like there's the main girl, when she officially comes out, even though she's already come out, that makes sense, over the internet and doing it with a song or whatever, it's like, that goes on for forever, and it just, oh, we get it. It's like, oh, Jesus, and the ending goes on forever. And it's a well over 2-hour movie. It's closer to 2.25 hours, and it's just, again, too long, and the pacing kind of becomes an issue after the first 40 minutes or so. And especially, there's one point where you get about an hour in, and the big prom scene happens, but then it ends up there's still an hour of the movie left. So again, spoilers, I won't give everything away here, but it's like, wow. I mean, again, some of the pacing after that, again, kind of struggles, ebbs and flows and stuff. So I guess I can't recommend it, but but I don't know. It's like, I mean, the musical. I'm a fan of musical and stuff. You can go back. I'll watch Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. Awesome. West Side Story. Awesome. There's great musicals out there. Even La La Land I enjoyed for more recent stuff. And it's like, so I'm down for a great musical, but this one has good musical moments in it, has some good singing in it, but then there's other stuff that doesn't work. I don't know. I'm all over the roadmap on this movie. The movie's all over the roadmap for what its message is and for what it's trying to be. And it's like, at the end of the day, I don't think I can recommend it. But I don't know. But at the same time, it's like, I'm glad I saw it because it's like, there's good stuff in there and all that. So it's like, I don't know. Oh boy. So that one, I can't. I don't know if I've ever done this. I don't know if I can even give that one a rating. It's just, it's like 1 minute. I do give it the 6 out of 10, so I can recommend it because there's stuff in there that I think everybody should see because it's good stuff. There's good numbers and stuff in it. There's stuff that's worth seeing. But then there's so much stuff that's it's just bad. I don't know. So if you've seen it already, yeah, okay. But if you haven't seen it yet, I'll totally leave it up to you and your mentality. If you're a big musical person, you'll probably maybe enjoy it, a little bit more than the lay person who's not big into musicals and who's more seeing it just for the star power of it, or if they want to see it for the message of the movie or whatever. It's like, you might come away disappointed if you're not going into it, expecting a musical or whatever. You're not a huge musical person or whatever. So I don't know. That one I leave up to you guys, but whatever. But okay, 2 left here. The next one I saw, I said I wanted to see this for documentaries. Bee Gees, How Can You Mend a Broken Heart? Directed by Frank Marshall. God, I couldn't think of his name for a minute there. He's done quite a few of these documentaries and stuff. Between him and like Ron Howard and a couple of the other ones there, they do a lot of these documentaries every year with a focus on either musical groups or certain periods of time and stuff and all that. And I thought this one was solid. It was solid. I'm a huge Bee Gees person as far as, they're my favorite group of all time. I probably have heard almost every song they've ever produced. And they have a fascinating story. I mean, at times tragic story, especially when you get into Andy Gibb and his stuff, which I almost feel in this documentary in particular, I get it's about the Bee Gees, and he's really only an official Bee Gee for a short time in his life. But it's like they get into it, just enough to cover everything with him. But it's like, I almost think they almost could have done a whole another like hour and a half documentary just on Andy Gibb and how he, shot up and everything, and then how it all came to a close and stuff. And I was really, again, I'm somebody, I've seen probably a couple documentaries or short, like a half-hour documentaries and stuff in the past about Bee Gees, so there wasn't way too much in this that I hadn't at least heard about or had some inkling of before, but like a couple things, surprising, like the whole relationship between Robin and Barry. That stuff, I wasn't as attuned to that as some of the other docs, because some of the docs, don't make it out to be that way. But it's like, yeah, they were kind of at odds through most of their professional career and stuff. I mean, maybe not when they were like kids, but like, after a while there. Let's see, my computer shut off here, so I'm just gonna log back in. Just I don't think we've had a problem with that turning the camera off by any means. But anyway, that just bugs me. And then also with how they recorded like Staying Alive and stuff, how the drummer had to walk away because of a personal family issue or whatever, and how they they just looped drums over and over again, and that's how they got the track started and everything. I'm like, wow. I mean, obviously today, nowadays everybody just has the keyboard, from the keyboard or whatever. You can just hit one key on there, and all of a sudden, when you're playing, you can have the thing. Metronome or whatever just in that thing, but it's like this was the first time they'd done it and stuff. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. Yeah. So it's definitely, if you're a Bee Gees person, go out and see it. It's only like an hour 40, so it's a pretty short documentary. It's not like OJ Made in America, like a 7.5 hour one, that one. But and then just in general, if you're a fan of music, because they get like maybe not as of like the last week, but like Justin Timberlake's in there. They get quite a few other perspectives in there, and they're really fascinating. They go into a little bit of like the disco sucks era, which fascinates me because it's like, I don't know, I kind of hold it's like in one hand, disco is something. It's like, yeah, I can always dance to disco, but other time it's like, well, good rock from the late 70s, 80s. It's like it did suffer because of disco, so it's like I get why there's that butting heads there and stuff. And it's like, they read a little bit into it. From my perspective at least, it seemed like they were really reading into it, into where Disco Sucks kind of became a race issue and an anti-gay issue and stuff. It's like, okay, it's I think it's fine to have that perspective and everything. It's fine to introduce it, because then it becomes a talking point and stuff. But it's like, I don't know, that stuff, they didn't. If they would have maybe gone into it a little bit more, I think I would have reacted to it a little better. But instead, it's just there, and then they're done with it. And I'm like, well, hold on a minute. Okay, what other evidence do you have that shows that everybody who went on Fenway or whatever the park was there, the night that they did all the disco burning and stuff, all the records, they blew them up and stuff. It was supposed to be like a doubleheader baseball game. Then it was kind of became a mob scene, and all of a sudden the second baseball game got called off, and all these people got arrested or fined and stuff. And it's like, and all that, and it's like, okay, well, just you have a couple people come on briefly and talk about how it is a gay issue. It was anti-gay for them to do it because they're destroying disco, which started out as kind of a gay fad, in the early to mid '70s there. And at the same time, you had this guy who said, "Oh, I just saw a bunch of records come in. They were all black records, from African American writers, songwriters, and stuff, and performers." And it's like, okay, well, that's do you have any more on that? Like, let's if you want to talk about it, go into it. I want to see more about it. But it's just brought up so briefly, and then it's just move on. It's like, I almost wish they would, because otherwise it's like, I don't know. It's like they kind of it's I had that problem with like Selma, when it's like, okay, they bring up his infidelity in that one, MLK's, and it's like, okay, well, don't brush up on it. Just, go into it. What happened? What was the reaction and stuff? Maybe they get into it with the MLK FBI documentary. I have that one on my list. That's one I'll see eventually here. But it's like, what happened there? And again, it's like, oh, it happened, but everything's okay because it's MLK and he's this big. It's like, oh, they kind of brush over it. Anyway, so it's like, I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but it's like sometimes it feels like they... some of these filmmakers, they do that. They throw it in there to satisfy a little bit, but they don't go full bore. And it's like sometimes I would have appreciated it to go full bore in that case. Anyways, so, but yeah, otherwise, again, solid documentary. Probably an 8 out of 10 for that one for me, just for me personally, because again, I've seen a lot of this stuff before, and how they came up with this song, how they came up with that song. Some of the original, it was nice to hear like the original like recording, studio recordings, where it's like them practicing and figuring out all the chords, figuring out the words and the melodies and stuff. It's like, especially for How Deep Is Your Love. I've heard most of there's like a 9-minute video you can find on YouTube or whatever. I've heard most of that video, and it's like really fascinating to see where it was and what it turned into and all that. And that's my favorite song of all time, by the way. How Deep Is Your Love? I thought it's oh gosh, I mean, still it's one, if you haven't heard it, you haven't seen Saturday Night Fever, it blows your mind. So good. Anyways, but yeah, it's solid doc. So good for HBO and Frank Marshall on that one. All right, last one here. This is the last one I caught last night, was The Midnight Sky with George Clooney directing this. And it's, I don't know, I liked it. I don't think it's a perfect movie by any means. I think the last 10, 15 minutes kind of go off the rails a little bit. And again, we'd have to go totally into spoilers to cover that. And it's been out for like a month, almost 2 months now, but still, I think a couple people might still be catching up with it, so I won't give everything away. But yeah, I was really interesting for me, because I thought the first act, for the most part, is set in this like polar station or whatever, where it's like it's just George Clooney and this little girl, and it's just them, going around the station all day, figuring, him trying to do some stuff to try to communicate with people, and her just, being a little kid and stuff. And it's like that stuff for me always, really worked. And I actually maybe wouldn't have minded it if that was the whole movie. Because some people, they'll say, "Oh, it's so boring." It's just these two characters and stuff. It's like, well, look at Malcolm and Marie. I thought that was fantastic. So, some of those, again, smaller, intimate settings, and stuff. It's like some of those movies I enjoy, maybe more than the ones that are broad settings and go, jump all over the place. The kind of globe-trotting movies. Yeah, that stuff I thought really worked, and I thought there was a good dynamic though, juxtaposed with that, with the crew that's on the one spaceship that goes around, and they had a bigger part in it than I thought they would. I thought it would just be like we check in with them here, and it's like, okay, eventually they're going to meet up with the George Clooney character or something. But no, they actually it's like Felicity Jones and Kyle Chandler and David Oyelowo from Selma, Demian Bashir, and there's one other, I didn't know her, but But yeah, it's like five. I think five of them or six on the spaceship there, and it's like, yeah, it's really neat that they all, the kind of dynamic they have and all that, and everything, and it's like, yeah, it's pretty good. And there's one particular kind of spacewalk scene, which of course George Clooney's in it, so it reminds everybody of Gravity for sure. And I think George, from the directorial job, he does a pretty good job building up the tension in that scene, because something's going to go wrong. Because it's so late in the movie, something's going to happen, but it takes long enough and it keeps it tense enough to where at a couple points you feel, oh, okay, it's just going to happen. Nothing's going to go wrong. But and then it makes you feel like a fool when something does happen. But it's like, yeah, I think they do a good job with that, and it worked for me personally. And then there's the effects are great. I mean, the score by Desplat. I mean, I put this up. This is probably one of his better scores. I mean, I liked it better than the Shape of Water score. He won the Oscar for that. Liked it better than the score for Little Women. Liked it better than probably a little bit better than like the Grand Budapest Hotel score. That one I do enjoy that one though too. Personally, for me, it's like the last two Harry Potter films. The scores he did for those were really good. Like some of the better scores of that whole series, and that includes like John friggin' Williams and all that. Like, yeah, so good. Some of those themes and stuff from some of those movies, especially when you get into like the last act of the Deathly Hallows Part 2. Some of that music is so killer, so good. But yeah, I do like his scores quite a bit. This one is one of his best in years. Absolutely one of his better scores. So I wouldn't even mind. Obviously, he's probably not going to win for this because it's it would be his third win in like 4 years or whatever. But it's like or it would even go beyond that. It's his third win in 6 years. So it's like or 7 years, whatever it's been since Grand Budapest. So, yeah, it would be, I guess, within 7 years. Yeah, you get what I mean. But it's like, yeah, I mean, this one, I think, absolutely. Take away his Oscar for Shape of Water and give it to this one. Yeah, I think it's fantastic, fantastic. I haven't seen, like, Soul yet, so I don't know the score for that one everybody loves, so I don't know. But that's probably the next one I'll see, actually, is Soul. But anyways, so this one, yeah, really, my problems with it, again, are restricted to that last 15 minutes. There's a couple scenes where Clooney and the girl kind of leave the compound, they go out and exploring, and it's like, some of those scenes kind of drag on a little bit. There's one particular scene which makes no sense, and then later we get kind of an explanation for why. And it's like, oh, and it's there is kind of a big kind of not twist, but like a big kind of revelation there in the last 5 minutes. That's like, oh, it's that trope. It's like, oh, it's something where it's like, okay, it's like there's a couple things, and it's like there's a similarity you can pick up. And it's like, if you're really, if you're paying attention, it's like, you can probably spot it out. And I thought about it, I'm like, don't tell me this movie's going to do this. And it did. And I'm like, shit. It's like, there could have been something really special that happened at the end here that transgressed all the expectations and stuff, subverted them, and come up with something totally new, something really different. And it is kind of a bummer ending too. It doesn't really end on a very happy note, and especially I mean, maybe that part of the reason why some critics didn't like it either is just that we are in a pandemic, and it's like a lot of people have been stuck at home the way Clooney is stuck in that compound for most of the movie and stuff. And to have it kind of be a bummer ending, during that, it can kind of, I can see why some people don't really enjoy that, because it's like they're looking for escapism, and this doesn't totally have it. And then I thought the movie kind of opens up with the explanation of something's going wrong on Earth, and it's like it's spreading all over the world and stuff. So I'm like, oh, I thought it was naturally assumed, oh, pandemic. It's like ironic how it comes out this year, right? But the explanation for what it is and how it happened, it's really elementary and really like, okay, I guess. I mean, obviously, if you look to some of Clooney's other work, you might be able to see it coming as well, and some of his speeches and stuff he gives, and some of his stances. But but it's like, again, it's they left it very, very brief, and it's like, well, okay, I don't know if it would. I've been consulted with a lot of people in that field where it relates to in the film, but it's like, I don't know if any of them have ever said that this happens if other stuff happens. It's like, I don't know if that's the end result that like starts killing off humanity or whatever. It's like, I don't know. I mean, not that I know of. I mean, somebody can point to a research paper somewhere that says, based on this conclusion, we can track it from, this, and all that. But it's like, I don't know. But yeah, otherwise, the effects are good, score's good, performance. George Clooney, I thought, was enjoyable in his role. And the little girl's good. The crew on the ship there, they have a pretty good close dynamic there and stuff. I thought that stuff worked. Kind of, it reminded me a lot of The Martian too, and Ad Astra and Interstellar. So yeah, that's a few things. A couple of the clips I read for reviews, they're like, well, it's so much like, kind of picking and choosing from all these other movies that it does come off as stale. I'm like, well, in some aspects it does, yeah. In other aspects, I don't think so. Yeah, and Gravity was one. That was my least favorite of the Best Picture nominees that year. I still really enjoyed the film, but it's like that was one. It's like I had some problems with that one. So everybody else, said it was a fucking masterpiece, best thing ever, all that stuff. It's like I had problems with it, but not enough to make it a bad movie by any means. I still gave it a 9 out of 10 for Christ's sake. So Midnight Sky, though, I would probably say this is close. This is like a 7. Again, good aspects in it, good performances and stuff, but I was trying to say, well, the knit crew of the Martian, yeah, the way that crew, minus Matt Damon, when they're all up in space and stuff, it's like, it reminded me of that. But yeah, overall, again, the pace, for the most part, was better in this one. I'm mentioning pacing a lot with a lot of this other stuff here today, but yeah, this one, it's like, yeah, there were a couple slower moments, but it's like, again, some of the action beats were actually pretty good. So, yeah, so that one I would recommend it, absolutely. It's not going to please everybody, and there's definitely, I think, some people that'll walk away from the ending very disappointed. But I enjoyed it. I still enjoyed it, despite its faults there. All right, so yeah, I didn't really allude to that in the beginning of the video, guys, but yeah, so good thing I got everything off my chest that I wanted to, especially around the Malcolm and Marie stuff and all that. It's like, oh man, it's like, I mean, if you're seriously going to put that stuff before reviewing the film, you don't deserve to have a job as a film critic, frankly. Because I grew up, and after kind of discovering Siskel and Ebert when I was like 12, 13, whatever, somewhere in there, it's like, man, I said, that's a job I could do. I could just sit back and review movies. And when I went to college, I initially started as film production, and then as time went on, I'm like, no, I found myself more getting in tune with like the writing assignments and some of the other like theory classes and stuff. I'm like, no, this is my comfortable spot and all that. And I was like the one guy who graduated from my college with the film studies thing, which is, again, more film criticism and film analysis and all that. And I think, it's really, it's a sad sight for me to see these people that, I mean, obviously every film critic out there, they got their job for a reason. I mean, most of them can write very, very well, probably better than I can in many cases. But it's like, seriously, I'm a guy, I go to the movies to enjoy the movies. I don't go to be a political loudpiece for this or that. It's like, no, I really don't stand for that. It just really irks me when it's like, okay, if you guys, and especially, I mean, I was kind of already kind of mad at a couple of the things from that crew there that I mentioned, the Breakfast All Day crew, because it's like, they've been saying, obviously they live in California and I live in Iowa, where I'm at, the pandemic, what that is versus what the pandemic is out there is very different. I understand that, but just their complete shutting down you shouldn't, nobody should go to a theater under any circumstance. It's like, oh God, come on, Jesus, you're seriously going to say that without even, anyways. But anyways, obviously, that being said, obviously, if you're in that area, you're in an area that does have a lot of cases, play it safe. Probably, try not to go to the theater if you can help it. If it is, if you're in a particular place. I'm not saying that by any means. I'm not saying take it, don't take it seriously. But it's like, yeah, just play it safe. And again, I've mentioned this before though. If you are in like a New York, LA, you're seeing your mom and pop theaters really struggle right now, make a donation to them. See if you can get a tax write-off for it. We're in tax season after all. It's like, if do whatever, look into that. See if you can do it or not, because I think that's that'll help keep these places afloat. I mean, a lot of them are getting government money too, to keep open. That's fine. But it's like on top of it, you can to show your patronage and stuff, and to support the movies without actually going to the movies if you don't feel safe, or if you what have you. I mean, I'm pretty sure you can do that in certain scenarios. You can at least look into it. So yeah. So anyway, so that's my message for the day. Anyways, like I said, I'm sure if I were a bigger channel, more than 180 whatever subscribers, I'm sure I would be canceled at this point just for having the stones to say that anybody should be able to say anything in any film. It's like, yeah. Whatever. But yeah, anyways, so that's that. I'm going to turn this off before I get into more trouble. But anyways, That that does irk me a little bit when it's like, okay, like people like me, I still pay to see almost everything that I see. It's like, yeah, some of this stuff was online and stuff, sure, but it's a pandemic. They released it online, you know, a lot of them did, like all the Netflix stuff and all that. I paid for my Netflix subscription, for Christ's sake, so give me that. But it's like a lot of these people, you know, they don't get paid to do it, but it's like people like me, and I'm sure thousands of other people out there that go on YouTube or go on Facebook or go on all their other avenues, Twitter and everything, and review films. They don't get paid to go see it. They pay out of pocket to go and review stuff, and sometimes they get nothing back from it, other than, you know, venting online or whatever. But it's like, yeah. Personally, yeah, I think it's, you know, it's like, I'm willing to put in the work to see everything and judge it as a film, not judge it as a political grandstand and all that. So, anyways, that's my feelings on it. But yeah, yeah, overall, yeah, there's good stuff out there, guys. Yeah, seek out, like, Pieces of a Woman, for sure. Chicago 7, if you haven't caught up with that one. News of the World, Sound of Metal, yeah, Malcolm and Marie. Yeah, look these films up. They're good stuff. So, yeah, that's it. So, yeah, I've still got to see, and I can illegally stream these. I might have to, just to, because I really am not a fan of predicting Oscars and stuff. When we get to nominations and not having seen these, it's like, I have to see these movies. So, and again, most of the time when I do have to resort to streaming these illegally or whatever, or seeing them on certain websites or whatever, I always go back and I pay for the movie later. I buy it on disc, or I buy it on Blu-ray or whatever, and it's like, yeah, definitely Sound of Metal. I'll pay to see that one on Blu-ray for sure. Malcolm and Marie, it's on Netflix, so you know, as long as I have my subscription. They're same with the Pieces of a Woman, and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, those I'll absolutely go back and buy and stuff. But yeah, so yeah, that's what I have for now. So yeah, what else? Like, I've yet to see Nomadland, One Night in Miami, Minari, The Father, but it's like that one I believe is, and I wasn't aware of this till I've seen a couple people talking about it on Gold Derby as well. They talk about The Father is on, it's from Sony Pictures Classics, and they don't really have any like streaming capabilities right now. They don't have any streaming networks or anything. So they're actually like sticking with theatrical release and stuff, kind of, you know, delaying that one as long as possible and everything. So I think it's supposed to come out like the last weekend of February or whatever in limited theatrical release. But I don't know when I'm going to get around to see that one. Maybe like just the week before the Oscars or something, if that's the only way I can find it, is just in a local theater somewhere. But and again, some of the small art house theaters that are in my area are still shut down. They haven't even opened. So it's the ones that would normally play The Father. I can't go down and see them. So yeah, so that might be the one mulligan I have this year, where it's like, okay, I didn't get to that one because I couldn't. There was literally no option for me to. But yeah, and that one, they've kind of talked about, they said that might have been, other than the producing credit, AFI, somebody explained that to me, so thank you. But it's like that might have been the reason it was left off Critics' Choice, because maybe not enough critics got around to seeing it for film, but they just name-checked Anthony Hopkins and Olivia Colman or whatever, or enough people had seen it that had appreciated those performances and the screenplay and stuff. But it's like, maybe that's an explanation for why. And clearly, if they want to just do their own screening with HFPA, which, you know, other films like All the Money in the World screened it, you know, pretty much when it was like done, like it's like literally like the second after they put the final, they got final cut on it or something, then they said, okay, let's screen it for these people and all that, just so we can get a couple nominations, which they got 3 that year. So, anyways, but yeah, it's. Yeah, that. You know, obviously that explains why. You know, it might have been not a huge, bigger player at like SAG and stuff for ensemble and everything. But yeah. Okay, yeah. Let's call it done. Yeah, as far as WGA and all that, where we originally started this video. Yeah, I don't know when we'll get around. I mean, obviously the list will come out tomorrow, but again, I don't really know, because it'll be just like a 2-minute video. I don't really think I'll have time today to get all the way through a couple other movies and talk about them and stuff. But yeah, we'll, I don't know. So we'll catch up with it later. I'll look at the also the guild schedule, and we might, after maybe a couple of guilds come out, we might briefly recap who's nominated at certain guilds, like, you know, costume designers, production designers, visual effects. Eventually, those are, you know, the visual effects one is almost one of the last ones always. But you know, as those guilds start to kind of come out, we'll kind of get to them. PGA and DGA are way down the list. Like, they come out like literally like I think a week before, or like 2 weeks before the Oscar nomination, or nominations come out on the 18th, I believe March 18th. But yeah, so that's obviously nominations for Oscars a little ways away. BAFTA is still a few weeks away. Globes are 2 weeks from yesterday, so maybe that's when we'll first catch up. I think maybe later this week or next week early, I'll do an updated prediction on Globes and say where I'm at for who's going to win in those categories there. So that's probably the next one. If I've seen enough stuff, and there's something else we can talk about, I might get into more reviews there, and again potentially cancel myself. But we'll see. And by the way, guys, I'm totally, if you're disagreeing with me on any of this stuff, feel free to comment and talk to me about it. But I'll keep it civil if you keep it civil. We'll just say that. So yeah. So let's leave it at that. This video's gone on way too long, so we will see everybody next time.